Hello and welcome to Meet Our Makers, an artist interview podcast produced in association with Beats Per Minute. I'm your host, Jeremy J. Fassett. On this episode, we get to meet Avey Tare. Avey Tare is the pseudonym of Dave Portner, who is a member of the experimental indie rock group Animal Collective, who have been around for over 20 years now. But Dave just put out his latest solo record, Sevens, under the Avey Tare moniker. And in this chat, he and I talk quite a bit about this new record, the inspirations behind it, what it was like to create it in the studio, and how this album is maybe a little different for him than some of his other work. We do get into Animal Collective stuff, especially about the Merriweather days, where the band sort of saw this meteoric rise. And we talk about older projects, the concept of pop and singles, the infamous Pull Hair Rabbi album, and more. I do want to say this is the first episode to come out since I launched the show's Patreon page, patreon.com/meetourmakers. You can go there and pledge, and you will get exclusive content such as from this chat with Avey Tare. I posted a Q&A where patrons could ask questions that I may or may not include in the talk, and I did get one, and it's in the talk, and if you don't pledge, you won't hear it. And if you don't pledge, then you can't ask one. So please consider going to pledge. I will come up with more benefits as we get more people. Patreon.com/meetourmakers. Thank you for listening. Thank you for pledging if you so choose to. This is me meeting Avey Tare. Hello, Dave. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right. So we should say right off the top, the main reason, besides generally being a fan of your work, that I invited you here today was that you have a new record coming out very soon.
Yes.
That is called Sevens, which is out on February 17th via Domino. Is that, I'm going to take a guess, I'm probably going to be wrong. Is that your fifth solo record?
Ooh, that is a good question. I believe it's the fourth.
Okay.
And then I have a record that in terms of full lengths, and then I have a record that's Slasher Flicks, or with Avey Tare Slasher Flicks, which is
right.
another side project. So
right,
it's not...
right. Yeah, and you've had a couple little side things here and there outside of the we should say outside of the main gig of Animal Collective, but this is, I guess, then your fourth proper just Avey Tare solo record.
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming out February 17th. How are you feeling as we sort of approach that date?
I'm feeling good. Usually and typically pretty anxious at this point, just to get it out there. For this one, it's a little bit more anticipated for me, just because I've had it around for so long. I recorded it in 2021, and just because of lots of the delays that are happening all around the music industry these days, vinyl production and all the stuff that labels, the label that I work with and that Animal Collective works with, Domino, just likes to coordinate so many things, and there's so many scheduling things. So yeah, it was just a minute to be able to actually release it with them. But yeah, I mean, otherwise I'm feeling really good. It's been nice to just kind of do some extracurricular art projects around the record, just kind of, making visual things, which I'm trying to give myself time to do these days amongst studio work and preparing for playing live.
Yeah, so you had a record last year with Animal Collective, and now this year with your own stuff. I mean, I feel like this is a relatively busy time for you.
Yeah, I mean, 2020 happened, and it was sort of, no pun intended, but a reset for no conscious reference of Noah's record there.
Oh yeah.
for a lot, for everybody, basically, in a lot of different ways. But for Animal Collective, just because that we had sort of reached a point that year too where we had all this stuff kind of ready to record, ready to release. And I had just released my last solo record, Cows in Hourglass Pond. And Noah had just released a solo record, and we had done various Animal Collective projects over the last few years. It sort of felt like the vault was empty, and that we had gone through this sort of situation around 2019 with, with us. It sort of becomes this complicated thing about how to release all the music that we tend to make sometimes, just because we don't want everything kind of coming out at the same time and just crowding the attention that every record should get. So 2020, we kind of found ourselves in this place that was like, okay, we can finally kind of organize everything now. And, it feel like we don't have this kind of backlog of stuff to put out. And then just because of not being able to actually record anything and, having to be quarantined and isolated, that just created this new kind of buildup of all this stuff that, we just started working on individually and together around that time. And for me, was this record just started because of just really feeling isolated and like I wasn't connecting with anybody musically, which had become such an important part of my life, yearly with the Animal Collective mostly. And so I just needed to get into the studio with my friend Adam McDaniel here at Drop of Sun Studios. And we just sort of started kind of from basic sketches and just started making this one, and it's just collected to the to the amount of music that I have coming out, I guess.
So is it just you and Adam on this record?
Yeah, and Adam's mostly just additional production.
Okay.
He doesn't really play any instruments on it. He's more of a collector of sounds as it goes, and just production ideas like here and there.
So you mentioned I said it was a busy time for you, but I mean it feels like all the people of Animal Collective are constantly busy. You made the joke about the Noah's last record, Reset, and then I believe he had one not too long before that. You had released in 2019. Do you guys as a group, as the Animal Collective crew, do you guys consciously try to give space to everyone's independent stuff too, so that it has a moment?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess around Noah starting to do solo stuff, it just seemed to kick off like a natural flow for us.
Yeah.
Where it seemed like the break from being together and being in this in the unit called Animal Collective or whatever, just it seemed like it was time. It always seemed natural that the time would come that it would be time to take a break. And so that's just sort of kicked off this flow of then me being kind of like, oh well, if we're going to be taking a break here, I guess I'll do some solo stuff. I mean, for me, it just started with actually having something that I down there, my first solo record proper, just sort of started accumulating in my mind, in my head when we were on tour during the Merriweather Post Pavilion days. And so that was more the incentive for me, just actually having songs in a record that I felt strong enough about to do a solo record in the first place. Because I up until then, I thrived a lot from collaborating with people, and that's sort of what I would do on the side, outside of playing with the other guys in Animal Collective. But then just having a lot of time off to myself around that time, or the time to myself when I was off at that time, just started working on my own thing. And so I just started getting into that groove too, where it was like, all right, I guess, Animal Collective's sort of done its touring cycle and its album cycle. It's, time to work on it. And it was a pretty good flow for a while. And then, like I was saying, I guess we reached the point where everything just started getting backed up again, and then you just have to find a new way of. I feel like that's good that things like that happen because it just forces you to find a new way of doing things and going about things, and you become more productive sometimes that way, and less. I don't know, just things flow a little bit better.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about Sevens. So this record, it follows your last record. It's been a few years since your last solo record. So if you had to sort of summarize, for lack of better words, uh, this record, what are you hoping we sort of glean from it? Like, what would you say, again, for lack of better words, what would you say it's about? Like, what motivated you for this record?
Well, I guess like I kind of said, the real motivation for wanting to put together a collection of songs, or this particular collection of songs and record them, was to just get into a studio
Mm.
and create something. Uh, I was feeling a bit idle and just stagnant artistically, musically. And I have a home studio, and that's where Animal Collective recorded our last record, or I recorded my parts basically for the last Animal Collective record, Time Skips. But after a while, for me, just being in the same place, the inspiration starts to fade, and the creative energy that I start to have and feel like putting into making stuff, starts to dwindle a little, and I guess I get what you'd call writer's block, or have trouble, and I just mixing up the space, and that's why I thrive on collaborating with people, because it keeps the juices flowing, pretty simply. And Adam is somebody that I've worked with before. He mixed Cows on Hourglass Pond, my last record, and just done various things with him, had to mix a bunch of stuff, and never done a full record all the way through until this one with him. So it also seemed like a good chance to do that, and we both had a lot of open time to do it. So yeah, that was basically, and then secondly, I just had the songs. I would just have a lot of time at home. Started just trying to write in different places, different rooms in my house, and not just my studio. My studio room is in my house. It's not like a crazy big studio or anything. It's a little small room that's attached to my garage. So yeah, I just started writing on acoustic guitar a lot, and I was also just messing around with keyboards and synths and sequencers in my studio, just pretty daily, and came up with these songs, and didn't come up with a lot of the structures or a lot of what went into them till actually going into the studio day to day, and would have like a basic skeleton, like the chords, the acoustic guitar chords, or there are a couple songs I wrote on piano. But then when I would go into the studio each day, it was nice to just start having these kind of like tasks to do each day, and just decide at the beginning of the day, okay, today I'll try and do this keyboard part, or a keyboard part like this, or maybe spend the night before like writing something or writing a part that I wanted to do, and then go in there the next day and kind of try and execute like a few things, because we never really worked that long during the day, and I kind of liked that about the process too. It was kind of just sort of like, because we both had other things going on, it was kind of like, well, let's work 3 hours on Tuesday, and then maybe we'll work 3 hours on Thursday, and then that'll be that for a while. And it was just to see at first if we actually had something or I had something worth recording and that would go somewhere. And that was just, excuse me, fun for us to work on together. And then it just started being a good flow, and, we were working well together. So yeah, it just started to be the kind of thing where we'd be like, oh, I wish we had more time, or I wish we were doing more days this week. And then it just sort of went like that until eventually, it was kind of like a no pressure situation. I mean, like, a lot of records that I'm accustomed to doing, it's like you're given a set amount of time, or we are given a set amount of time, a lot, for a lot of different reasons, because of money or because of schedules and all the stuff that goes into, living and life. And this is the first record I made in a while that was kind of just sort of like, well, I don't really have a schedule here. I don't have a timeline. Don't even know really what I'm like reaching towards. I'm just kind of like seeing how this one comes together, and
Right.
it's showing something as much as I'm sort of guiding it. I'm also being guided in a way.
Yeah. I mean, did you find it sounds like you might have found some kind of almost freedom in that, like breaking it down into that sort of regimentation of, this today and then this tomorrow and sort of feeling it piece by piece as opposed to maybe conceptualizing an entire project all at once.
Yeah, and I think more so, especially in the last few years or so, putting limitations on myself and all
Hmm.
of Animal Collective, just in terms of simple things like that, how much I should do in a day, and it's really changed my work ethic a lot, and just also the pressure I sometimes let myself feel to like get things done and do a lot, and maybe like do too much. So it was definitely about like cutting back in that sense.
Do you typically feel like less pressure or lower stakes when you're working on solo stuff than you do with the Animal Collective stuff?
A little bit, just because the process is often where I just sort of start building slowly, building piece
Hmm.
by piece. I'm not always certain um, where it's going, or even if there will be a record. I think
Right.
Eucalyptus, my second solo record, is another good example where I just started collecting all these acoustic songs and started conceptualizing, like, oh, it'd be really cool if I could, do this kind of collage style acoustic record. Um, but didn't really know for a while if it would ever be a record or anything until I, reached a point where it's like I, just kind of have to do something. I have to make a record. It just kind of I reach a point where it just kind of has to happen after a while. If I've collected enough stuff, I'm like, all right, this will be a good record. And this one, it took a little bit for me to be like, all right, these songs all can be a record, or like
Hmm.
I had the songs, it just they just sort of started popping up like here and there. It wasn't like I was like working, this is the first time where I wasn't really working consciously on like writing all these songs for a cohesive record. It just
Right.
kind of happened over time.
And you mentioned sort of some of the inceptions of a few of these songs were sort of just you on guitar or piano, which you can kind of hear in the record. There is more acoustic guitar than maybe we would expect from an Animal Collective thing. There is some pretty forthright piano. Is that a is that a different process for you than it would be if you were writing a song consciously for an Animal Collective record?
Well, I mean, often with Animal Collective records, we kind of decide what the palette is going to be
Hmm.
before we go into it, and that becomes sort of like the challenge for us, I guess,
Oh,
to
okay.
often individually, we kind of make the decision because of interests musically that we have, and just sort of like, I guess a great example would be Brian getting into the hurdy-gurdy. You know what I mean? Like some time before we actually started working on time skips, and just actually it being a challenge for him to incorporate it musically into our sound palette.
Yeah.
And and yeah, for me it was the same thing with that record, time skips, to do that with bass. So yeah, it's often happened like that with Animal Collective records. And yeah, for this one, I mean, I write on an acoustic guitar and piano a lot just because it's very easy for me, and there are two instruments I have around. I have a piano in my studio room,
Hmm.
and you can easily take an acoustic guitar pretty much everywhere. Um, I tend to, from kind of year to year or whatever, era to era of my songwriting, kind of hesitate sometimes to lean towards that, or lean towards acoustic guitar. Like these days, for example, I'm trying to not write stuff on those instruments at all, just because it's like we always say, kind of we're always trying to change it up, and just and get different sounds and get different style of songs. And I think often with the acoustic guitar or with the piano, at this point, I run the risk for myself of just writing songs that I feel like are too similar to other songs
Mm-hmm.
that I've written, maybe. So yeah, there's a hesitation for that for me. But then there are other times, in the case of sevens, or the songs that ended up on sevens, I can be, fine and just feel like, oh, I feel like I'm doing something kind of unique here for myself, with this instrument, or like exploring new territory. And I think for sevens, for me, it's sort of like collecting a group of songs to sort of end an era of my life, I think, or of my creativity, of a style. I think I'm leaning more towards a tendency towards like more abstraction, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Um, just in writing and really wanting things to break apart a little bit more. And so I see sevens as kind of this monument of maybe a style that kind of came before for me, but also I feel like I have a foot in the future. You know what I mean? It's like I'm definitely dabbling around with new things and new sounds.
Yeah, and I actually feel like that comes through on sevens because I was listening to it just about an hour ago. I was listening to it for the first time. Um and it at first I was like, oh wow, this is kind of like his sort of poppiest, for lack of better terms, his like most front facing forward, pretty much bald on its face thing. And then very quickly it turns into something else.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
which
Kind of
leads me, what were you gonna
okay,
say?
go ahead. Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a light, dark record to me, or something like that,
Yeah.
for lack of a better putting it. I mean, that's very, very vague, but yeah,
Yeah, but the first
the
two songs you start with are pretty, pretty upbeat, kind of pretty, like there's nothing too abstract, and then you kind of drop us off into the nether realm. So that mention of abstraction is sort of a good segue. I wanted to take just a minute and unpack what the song that I was kind of only on one listen, but the song I was kind of flocking towards most was Hey Bog, um, which is I think the most abstract on the record. I don't know. Well, I don't know if that's true. Um, but it felt like
I
it for a
think
while anyway.
yeah, I mean, I think because it has some longer abstract moments, maybe.
Yeah, like it begins with a pretty long sort of ambient passage.
Mhm.
It's a good few minutes long, sound, a lot of sound play. It kind of reminded me of some of the sort of more sound-based experiments that you guys did in like the 2000s, or maybe some of your visual album work. Um,
Mhm.
and then you kind of come at it with more of a song towards the second half. So I'm curious though, sort of what is that song sort of speaking to? And then moreover, how do you end up feeling out a song like that? Because I would imagine you have other moments in the studio or in writing that are sort of elongated or have these passages that you end up sort of excising. So then how do you feel out a song like Hey Bog, and you kind of let it just sort of breathe and be its own thing?
Well, I think what helped that with Haybog for me is that I wrote it to play live originally, and
Mm,
it's the only song on Sevens that I kind of wrote pre-pandemic, I guess is the best way of putting it.
mm,
I wrote it in, I think, first shows in 2018, but maybe it was 2019. Shows like solo shows I was doing. Yeah, it was 2019. Just for a few solo shows that I did, and it kind of was in the same tuning as the some of the Cal songs that I was playing, and I remember just kind of like falling into it when I was jamming around with other songs. And yeah, and since it kind of started that way, and since yeah, I mean, you bringing up kind of the older sort of sound passages of Animal Collective. I mean, a lot of that came from us playing around live too, and I think that kind of was just in my head going into the studio, just thinking like, well, I want the song to feel still like it's this beast, like this thing that would happen in the middle of a live set, and sort of
yeah.
grow out of me jamming from the song before, and then I like traveling. I like music that travels. I like music that will place you deeply in one environment and then take you somewhere completely else uh, in the course of 5 minutes. For me, it can be longer a lot of the time. But it's the length of a song, numbers wise, sometimes matters very little. It's like feeling it out.
Yeah.
Sometimes a very short song can seem far too long, and vice versa. So yeah, yeah, like so. It was really just a matter of feeling it out and feeling. I just had went in with Adam and was just kind of like I want to start it off just with like a longer, slower build to the actual song, because I kind of want to ease into it like I would in a live situation.
Yeah, and I mean, Animal Collective, you mentioned you guys used to sort of road test a lot of songs before you went into the studio. I feel like you guys still do that because I kind of remember, or maybe not every time, but I kind of remember, was it your last Coachella set? You guys previewed a lot of the time skip stuff.
Those are days, I think it was.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I mean,
Um,
that is like a thing that I feel like you guys are
yeah,
sort
for
of known
sure.
for, is sort of testing out stuff and then feeling it out for the record.
Yeah, there have only been a few cases where we have not. And I mean, I mean, like I've been saying, it's for me, my solo stuff usually just, comes out of the air all of a sudden, and just starts forming. And so I'm not on a tour. I'm not doing tours that often enough where I can be writing stuff for a tour. It just kind of, so, my stuff is often played or on tour after it's recorded. So yeah, and in that sense, it can change then. And some of this stuff might change a little for what I'm trying to play it live. But yeah, for Hey Bog, it was just, I guess, since it was one of the few songs that I've actually played live um, and wanted to record. I just kind of wanted to hold on to that and make it feel kind of like this live incarnation.
Yeah, which means you also have uh, you've already had a vision of how to play that one live. I mean, do you consider that when you record songs that weren't tested live? Like, how am I going to recreate this?
No. It's caused some problems for sure. And the ones that are the toughest to you are usually the ones that just don't get played live.
Yeah.
And those are and it's an easy way of cutting songs out.
I mean, we should say Sevens is, despite being a pretty decent length, it is only 7 songs. So I would imagine
So
that you'll have a few in your back pocket to whip out to replace those.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Um, so I do want to get a bit into Animal Collective for a moment. Um, so you did put out Time Skiffs, which is, oh geez, I'm looking at my notes and I feel like I'm wrong. Maybe the 10th or 11th Animal Collective album. I think I'm wrong. Um,
Something.
no, okay, it's 11th. It's 11th. It's 11 albums. I
Well,
mean, that's pretty good.
yeah, yes.
I mean, does that like is that something that you sort of that you or all of you sort of are like consciously conscious of, like the fact that you've been going at it for over 20 years, you're 11 albums deep, like does that actually, do you feel that when you're doing stuff?
In some ways, it's only just started to feel like it's been a long time, and it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of records. I feel like for so long it was kind of just this wave that was just going and going and going, and we were just a part of the wave, and you don't really we I didn't really think much about accumulating records or looking back a lot. It was just always kind of like what's next, and
Yeah.
um then because of some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, stuff has gotten more spaced out, and there's been more um pauses in between making records and tours, and that's just allowed for more space for more contemplation and looking back and thinking about where we are. And yeah, it feels now, it feels like, yeah, we've been around for a while. And I think also just, you know, constantly, or not constantly, but, talking to a lot of younger people who are, just getting into the band, and it's
Yeah.
just like a whole different generation of people getting into the band. And that just, yeah, that's another, yeah.
It's always, yeah, it kind of reminds me of like people from like television shows from the 90s and how they talk about how people who weren't even born yet are getting into the show now. And it's like once you've been releasing albums for 22 years, I mean, that's bound to happen, which is must be kind of surreal in a way.
Yeah, and it's surreal to draw comparisons to other music that I listen to, and
Yeah.
when I think about when I was 16 and I really or 17, I really liked, say, Echo and the Bunnymen, and kind of at that time, 94, 95, their heyday had been like 10 years prior.
Hmm.
Um, and to me, they seemed like an old band then, like 10
Yeah.
years after, so I can only imagine, what somebody getting into Animal Collective now thinks of, a 20-plus-year-old band.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you do, as you said before, you guys do try to go in a new direction every album or two. So I assume that sort of helps keep the momentum going a bit. But I mean,
Yeah.
you also mentioned there were fewer spaces between your music. I'm looking at the list now. You guys put out 7 records in 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, well, the aughts were, yeah, pretty fruitful.
I
I
mean,
think I was.
that's a lot. And I mean, we still talk about some of these records. Like music journalists still talk about Sung Tongs and Feels and Strawberry Jam, and that's before Meriwether Post Pavilion even happened. So yeah, I mean, I would hesitate to say you guys are like a legacy act because you're still doing new things, but I would imagine maybe after 20 years that does start to be noticeable to you guys.
Yeah, for sure, and it's definitely those records that people bring up
Hmm.
most of the time when they bring up Animal Collective. Sung Tongs and Fields, Strawberry Jam, Merriweather. But I also think that we just feel fortunate. I feel like that we're able to maintain a thriving fan base. I guess is
Hmm.
that's what really keeps us going, and that there are people because of that fan base. There are new people that get into us, that just want to know what's up, and are getting into the newer records. And yeah, I think that's just sort of like what keeps us going, and I feel like a lot of people definitely uh attach themselves to those older ones, and that's cool. We're proud of all of it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you guys are the type who have like disowned your past work.
No, 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 definitely not.
So, have you noticed anything though, like being in the band, say now or last year when you guys were putting out timescapes versus those early days that seems markedly different or even remarkably similar? Like, have you noticed these shifts over time?
um I mean, I feel a lot less pressure, maybe to. I mean, maybe pressure is not the right word, and I just can't think of something a better. It's because it's a feeling. It's something in me. I feel, yeah, I just feel, but pressure is the only way I can think of putting it. But less pressure to maybe do certain things around certain records. I feel like there's, as I used to, maybe I feel like there's not as much at stake.
Hmm.
I feel like it's easy for bands to get into in the music industry to just get into this flow of like kind of like building and building and building, and like you're part of this machine, and like there's all these different sides to it. There's the live side and going on tour and putting your record out and record sales, and so there's a lot of people around that have a lot of ideas of how to enhance your situation and make it grow. And
Right.
it's easy to fall into a pattern of listening to that advice, and it's not something we've ever really done creatively. I feel like we've always kind of taken the reins in terms of how we create and what we create and what we put out there. But there's definitely a lot of sides of the industry that we've kind of take the advice of other people or let other people lead the way, and it's easy to get into patterns where that just becomes the norm, you know what I mean? Or you think that like every record, like you have to do that for every record, or like music videos, for example, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like every band puts out a music video for their record, but sometimes it's kind of like, well, I don't know, maybe I just don't have the greatest idea for a music video, you know what I mean? And sort of, why does it always have to be that way? So I feel like, especially more nowadays, it's not that like things feel different, like I want to do something different than we used to do or not. It's just sort of like, yeah, we're things have always kind of changed for us, and I think this definitely feels like some sort of new place that we're in, that feels very, very different, I think, than before. But it also has to do a lot with looking back too, and just kind of remembering what our roots are, and kind of maintaining sort of a lot of similar positions and attitudes that we did back then now.
Yeah. So were you guys like, did you ever notice or feel the shift that like fans noticed when Merriweather came out? Because that was sort of this flagship record for a while. Um, it was like almost top 10 on the Billboard charts, which people who had been following you since like Spirit They've Gone were probably like flabbergasted by. Um, because it was quite a different record than your earliest stuff. But I mean, you guys went from being sort of this underground, this sort of beloved underground group to this sort of higher on the marquee name? I mean, you guys were headlining shows, you were at the top of festival charts. I mean, that was around that time. Did it seem strange at the time that there was like this weird like breakthrough happening?
Um, on the one hand, it felt sort of just in line with where things had been going.
Mm-hmm.
It was, everything, every step with every record was kind of incremental, and I think it all happened at such a slow pace for us.
Yeah.
It would have been much different if it would have been our second record, you know what I mean, or
Right.
our third record. But I feel like with each record post arc, it felt like more and more people were starting to come out and see us. So and I felt like Merriweather Post Pavilion, yeah, the difference in the amount of people coming out and immediately just sort of like, I guess, selling out like almost every show on tour and that kind of thing definitely felt different, but it didn't really feel like a huge jump from where we had been with Strawberry Jam. I guess also just because we kind of never stopped, you know what I mean? We never
Yeah.
like had a chance to take a break and have downtime and be like, wow, we're kind of after this last one, we got really, really big or whatever. It was just kind of like, we're still going. We're out there. You know what I mean? We're touring again next year. We're going to play these venues. It felt like we definitely hit venues on the Merriweather tour that I feel like have remained kind of like the venues that we've played, since. So maybe in that sense, like a lot of things feel like they haven't changed since then. Um, but it was also sort of like, I don't know, it didn't feel like this huge step up. I guess what did feel kind of different was that it was kind of just happening everywhere that we
Yeah.
went, you know what I mean? Especially in the US, it was like we could count on selling out Tucson and we could count on selling out New York City, you know what I mean? And on
Yeah.
certain tours before that wouldn't be the case, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I
in
mean, you
that sense,
guys you guys tour a lot. You always have. I mean, you're kind of like a touring group. I think you guys hopefully you enjoy touring. So yeah, I would imagine that didn't phase you guys there. But so maybe it did just kind of feel like a culmination of sorts.
Yeah, in a way, it just felt like, putting in a lot of work here and there, putting in a lot more work and a lot of work, and yeah, just kind of the amount of work we put into it all like paid off.
Yeah. Okay, I have a few random questions now. That are not, I have no good segue into these. Um, so you mentioned Shrubbery Jam and how that kind of felt like like the Merriweather time didn't feel like markedly different from the Strawberry Jam time because it kind of all built up. But I do want to point out, I think Strawberry Jam era was the first time you guys were invited to play late night TV. And
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I remember specifically like staying, I forget which show it was. It might have been like Conan, I don't know. But I remember staying up to watch it and you guys chose to play number one.
Mhm.
I just I guess my question is why did you choose to play number one? Because I feel like that's quite a choice to play number one when you
Well,
could have played like, I don't know, what, like Unsolved Mysteries or something.
yeah, for sure. Unsolved mysteries, maybe not even. I mean, there's well, um, there's a time limit first of all
True,
for all
true.
these shows. So I think that was our first boundary there, and back in the day, we were just so oblivious and ignorant to how things worked in that world. And we never thought we'd be a band with a single, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's never been a goal for us either. We like writing songs, we like pop music, but it's just kind of this element of what we do. It's not like we, have this song when we're in the studio and we're like, yeah, this is going to be the one that's on the record that, you know what I mean, is going to blow up or whatever. It's just sort of like another song that's like a piece of the puzzle or another melody. And, we kind of also all love improvised music and free jazz and kind of we're coming up around the time of bands like No Neck Blues Band in New York and Black Dice and like all this
Mm-hmm.
improvised stuff, or stuff with improvisation, Gang Gang Dance, and
Jackie
so
O.
it wasn't that weird to us to just want to go on TV and do what we do, you know what I mean? Because that was part of what we do. And making the decision to play number one was kind of just in line with that. It's just sort of like this is the experience that we want to create in this situation. It doesn't have anything to do with playing what our most popular song was, which we couldn't play anyway. It was Peace Bone. I think that everybody was kind of like counting on us doing. And all this weird stuff actually happened backstage where they have TV monitors in the backstage rooms and you can kind of see their dress rehearsals and stuff. And we saw Conan like radioing with people and like we kind of thought that they were talking about us and sounding like a little disappointed because we decided not to play the single
Yeah.
that was uh, that was on our record. But the whole concept of single and everything like that was just so foreign to us. It really like blew our minds that like people actually cared, like
Right.
that we didn't play that song like it was actually going to cause trouble. Because to us it was just kind of like we're just getting up there and playing music and expressing ourselves and doing what Animal Collective does. But yeah, it was. But again, like another big problem for us was Peacebone was too long, and because it was um there was parts of it there was a loop that was kind of like pre-programmed. It couldn't be shortened. Like, we didn't really use the kind of gear back then that we used mini disc players and pretty low grade stuff for that kind of thing. To just do an edit or something right before we had to play. And we weren't into edits either, really. Like we've rarely done radio edits.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a problem for us too, like having to edit our song, which we kind of, has been problems at other times too, just like in terms of radio edits and things like that. I feel like we've never really feel like we caused a problem like we did that day, but it all worked out. And the tech people there at the show, I feel like, were psyched because they decided to bring in dry ice to enhance the
Yeah,
mood,
I remember the
and
fog.
everybody, like, very, it was a unique experience for them. So I don't know. In other ways, it turned into a cool thing, and I feel like it's created this like lore now, in animal collective world and animal collective fan world, with like the closed caption kind of stuff, saying woman singing like under Noah singing, and like
Oh,
demon voice and stuff like that. You can see, I don't know, it's just like
I
now
didn't
all
know
these
that. I
weird
didn't know
art
that part. That's
from
funny.
yeah.
Uh, what was it like working on your first EP with Vashti Bunyan?
It was amazing.
Like that's
Also,
amazing.
it was, I mean, dreamy is a, kind of cliched way to put anything, but it was very dreamy. Mostly because it just happened so fast, and we were in the middle of a tour. Um, and we were touring for Sung Tongs, but we were playing as a three-piece in Europe, and Josh was on the road with us. And Brian couldn't make it that tour because I think he was working on Capitol Hill back in those days and couldn't
Oh,
get away from his job. The short period that we had to deal with that. So yeah, we were able, Josh and Noah and I, and Rusty Santos was doing sound for us. He's recorded Sung Tongues and a number of things and for us and Noah. Um, and he was doing sound for us for a brief time period back then on this European tour. So yeah, just we happen to have these days off or work days off into the end of our tour, or somewhere around the middle of the tour. I can't really remember. And we went into the studio for like 2 days, I think, or 3 days, or maybe it was even just one day. I can't remember very well. It was 1 or 2 days, I think. And just we had the songs. They were leftover sung tong songs. Or we usually go into the studio with far too many songs for record and then have to cut it down. And so we had these songs left over, and they just seemed to work for Vashti's voice. And we had met her through Kieran Hebden
mm.
a few months before, and just sort of kept in touch. And I just was a huge fan of Just Another Diamond Day when the reissue came out, and still a huge fan of that record. And just, yeah, could not be more happy that I had that experience, and
Yeah, that's a pretty rare experience.
yeah, it was, yeah. And it turned out well too, which,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it did. And I mean, I feel like I should throw in, for those of people who are maybe less familiar, obviously Diamond Day is sort of a classic folk gem. But her third record, Heartleap, is gorgeous. It's just so
Yeah,
pretty.
I
It's
like
just
all
so
those
pretty.
songs. Yeah.
So I have one question from the Beats Per Minute crew. I
Okay.
ask before I interview people, I usually throw into our chat like, "Hey, anyone dying to know anything?" You're under no obligation to answer them, but I want to ask. So I got one
Okay.
question from Ray Finlayson, who said, "Ask him." I'm reading this. Ask him about pull hair rabbi and whether he regrets reversing it.
Oh man.
You don't need to answer that.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine.
Let me say, for the record, by the way, we both have a soft spot for pull hair rabbi. I must say.
You have a soft spot for the forward version or the reverse version?
Either one. I think there's something alluring about it.
Um, I mean, it's just another case where I did not really think that was going to upset as many people as it seemed to. You know what I mean? And in that sense, like, I'm just not the type of person that really fares well with upsetting people and upsetting a lot of people. So, that side of me, uh, the empathetic side, wish, kind of was like, oh, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. But then, my creative side, the side that, isn't like a strong side of my personality, but my artistic side or whatever, like, and feels that, nah, that's what I did. And I feel good about it. I think it sounds good. I thought it sounded cool then. And with music technology, it's so easy to reverse. You know what I mean? I definitely think about putting out the version of the original songs that we recorded, but I also haven't listened to it in so long. It's just at this point, it's just a matter of like time, and is that a project I want to devote time to now, or it might happen. You never know.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep our eyes out for that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to restate the main mission here, Seven's new record coming out February 17th on Domino. What do we make of that title, by the way?
Seventh.
It's just
What,
Sevens.
no, that's what you're asking. What I
Yeah,
make
yeah,
of it,
yeah.
or I mean, there's 7 songs on the record. That's kind of where it started, and then seven's just a number that comes up a lot for me.
Fair enough.
And started. I just sort of build a world around a record, and this one started being built around seven, and I will still be. I'm 43 now, and I will still be 43 when it comes out. I thought it would come out last year, but I would have been 43, and 4 and 3 are 7. Yeah, there are a lot of things like that around it.
Cool.
So it's just how the number 7 flourishes, and let it flourish.
Yeah, let it flourish. All right. Well, it comes out February 17th, everyone. Please take a listen. Thank you, Dave, Avey, Tare, Portner, for your time. I really appreciate you taking an hour of your day to speak with me today.
Thanks for having me on.